Welcome to the Kickass Couples Podcast. This is the place where we help committed couples who want to level up their marriage experience newfound clarity, hope, and confidence. We're Matthew and Kim, co-hosts and husband and wife.
In 26 years together, we've seen a lot and never thought it could be as good as it is right now. We're here to help you successfully navigate the messy, dirty, and wonderful world of marriage.
We believe all couples deserve and are capable of experiencing an extraordinary and fulfilling marriage. And each week, we're bringing you life lessons from real-life successful couples to help you grow and strengthen your relationship.
We'll get started right after this message.
If you want to learn how to experience the best, most fulfilling year of your marriage, we invite you to order Matthew's new book, Kickass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. You can get it at Amazon.com or visit Matthew's website, www.matthewphoffman.com. Again, that's Amazon.com or www.matthewphoffman.com. And now, back to the show.
With her beloved husband, Joe Vego, by her side, Jillian Flodstrom has several seven-figure businesses in 3 different industries. Joe has worked hard to develop his real estate business and became successful selling dream homes. For Jillian, between feeling overwhelmed and extreme exhaustion, it was always a struggle to juggle life and work. Until one day, a life-changing car accident forced her to rethink how she was doing business. Inspired to scale down her life and business, she created a course and product line and began producing her own podcast, Scale Your Small Business. Now, Jill helps small business owners mitigate the feelings of being overwhelmed, chaos, and confusion so they too can grow and scale their businesses. Tune in to learn how 2 busy and successful pros of their industries managed life and work together, leaving time to dedicate to their new and upward trending kick-ass marriage. Welcome back to the Kick-Ass Couples Podcast. We are so excited today to have Jillian Flodstrom and Joe Vego with us, all the way from the West Coast. We got an East Coast, West Coast connection happening today, and we are so excited to have you guys. How long have you all been married?
2 years.
Newlyweds.
Yes.
I like that. So still all giddy and love and everything's perfect, right?
Oh, totally.
Still in the honeymoon phase for
Still in
sure.
the honeymoon. Well, you know what? Stay that way because we've been married 27 short years and we are still in the honeymoon phase because we keep on dating each other every day. And we're having a lot of fun. But we love to kind of start off each episode with the same question for our couples. And I would like to know from you guys, what makes you a kick-ass couple?
Go ahead, honey.
Okay. Well, one of the things I think that makes us a kick-ass couple, and it's something that immediately attracted me to Jill, is we are both very goal-driven people. And we not only have those attributes individually, but we share it with one another. We talk about it and we plan for the future constantly, and we're on the same page. So that's kind of been, I don't know, for me, like a big part of my relationship and my attraction to Jill from the beginning.
I agree with that. I think it's something that we're constantly evaluating and adjusting to. So it's, we set our goals, but then they're evolving as time goes on too.
That's great. It's important to have goals. And I'd kind of be curious, do you guys, when you talk about goals, and do you guys have goals for your relationship, or do you ever talk about, marriage goals or anything like that? Or is it more on the business side that you guys relate to in that way?
It's actually both.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of what we call like our annual meeting. We go to Starbucks and talk about our goals for the year, but you're absolutely right. It's not just business stuff, both for our individual businesses, but businesses together, but then also our marriage too, because I think that's super important.
It is. I would agree. Well, that's good to hear.
I would love to go backward with you before we move forward and ask you more questions about what's happening with you now. I'm going to back up a little bit and I'm going to ask you about your families of origin, because I believe that what was modeled to us when we were younger, the way love was expressed to us when we were little, has a big impact on what we bring to our marriage and our relationships. So I'd love to ask you, Jillian, what did love look like in your family when you were growing up? How was it expressed and modeled for you?
Well, so my parents are still married. So they've been married for 54 years. So my mom stayed at home and raised myself and my two sisters. And then, of course, took care of my dad, which I think is probably like a fourth child. But so love was modeled to me in that they always worked together. They, even though my dad worked outside the home, my mom took care of everything inside the home. So they really were a team and they worked together. And I think that's so important in marriage. And even though we don't have children, I think for people that do have children, I think remaining on that same team is really important.
How did they express love to each other? Did they hold hands? Like what did you see?
So they went on a date night every Friday night, no matter what. Like even as we got older and we were in high school, we had sports, that was kind of the, football games, things like that, but they still preserve that time for each other. And every Friday night they went out. And then we also had a summer home. So we would go every summer during summer vacation when we were in school, but they would go just by themselves a different time of year. So like at the 6-month mark before, summer started. So they really took a vacation just by themselves and left us at home when we were older. So I think that, that consistency of dating every week, but then also going on a vacation without children, I think probably just made their marriage just that much stronger.
Sure. I hear you saying that they were really prioritizing their relationship over their children and their family, which we believe is so important. It's necessary. We have to do that in order to have a successful relationship. How about you, Joe? How was love modeled for you and your family when you were growing up?
Well, it was very unconventional. First off, my parents were 30 years apart. My dad was 30 years older than my mother. And so by the time I came along, because I was an accident, they thought they were done having children. Both parents were retired. So I got to be around parents that I wasn't in a working home. I wasn't in a working family. So I had both parents around all the time. So what that meant was a lot of the times, we'd get through the school season and they would volunteer at school too throughout the school year. But once the school season was over, we'd hop in our car and we'd go away for the summers every year. And so that was kind of the model for me, was that I always got to see both parents together all the time. I got to see, their disagreements, which would happen every once in a while, but my mom and dad were very polar opposite. So my mom was more of not necessarily a control freak, but definitely that type A where she's in charge, planning everything, doing everything. My dad was a little bit more laid back, and just they complemented each other very, very well. So I would see one side try to argue and the other one would come in and comfort the other person to figure out where the common middle ground was. So that was kind of always my model of how a successful relationship works when you have a dynamic there.
Sure. Sounds like you got a lot of attention when you were younger with.
I did.
Double coverage, 2-on-1.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No zone coverage there.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, we have kind of 14 pillars that we think are essential in all successful relationships. And we really focus on the first 3 that we call our 3 C's. And those 3 C's are commitment, communication, and conflict resolution. So, Joe, I want to ask you, what does commitment look like to you in your relationship with Jill?
I say this to her jokingly quite a bit, but I really mean it, which is once I decided, because we found love later in life, we're, in our 40s now, but when I jokingly tell her this all the time, like till death do us part. Like I knew that when we were getting married, like I'm not giving up, like no matter what happens, I'm going to be there through it all. Like there's no backing out for me. So that's my commitment, no matter what. And I feel that it falls through to the other 2 C's too, the commitment part.
No, absolutely. That's good. Yeah, you're all in, which is important to know. How about you, Jillian? What do you feel
Well,
about?
I think the funny part about that, and this is probably something that we need to talk about, is that, so I have a degree in forensic biology. So I worked at the coroner's office. So I love true crime. I mean, that was my world for a very long time. So when we joke about that kind of stuff, there's a little bit of backstory behind it too. But I think it's true that it's, you have to be committed to each other, because it's very easy these days to just like throw in the towel and be like, I'm off, there's, the grass is greener on the other side sort of a situation, rather than work through some of the tough things that happen when you're married.
What ways do you show you're committed to Joe?
Well,
Can you
I
think
think
of
we
anything?
we definitely have a lot of humor. I mean, we definitely joke around a lot. There's a couple like, I don't know, code words or key phrases that we use when you're like, oh, you are testing me today. So I think establishing those ahead of time, so when you're like, okay, like you're getting to the edge here, like you're gonna tick me off. I think that's important. But I think most importantly is we laugh a lot. Like there's not a lot of things that rattle us together. I mean, there might be things that like affect one of us individually, but then the other one comes in with like a funny story, or there's just like some random thing that just makes the other person laugh. And you're like, okay, that's dissolved. It could have been a bigger thing, but it's not, because we turned it into something funny.
Sure. The second of our 3 C's is communication. And we believe that it's critical to have good communication in a relationship. So I'm curious, how do you communicate with each other? How do you create time to communicate? What is your communication style like?
Well, I would say our communication style is all over. Since we both work independently, live very, very busy lives, a lot of the communication's done through like text, or I would say like even little small videos here and there. But we always do make the time to at least enjoy a meal together every day. So culturally, for me, the communication part was always shared over a meal, and that was at night during dinner. So, while it might just be a meal for most people to nourish their bodies, it goes way deeper than that, I think, for me and our relationship, because breaking bread and having conversations, hey, how was your day going? Like, what's something new? What are you looking forward to doing? This and that. There's just so much that happens and communication during that time of breaking bread that is like, it's awesome.
And I think too, something important about that is it doesn't necessarily have to be dinner. Like just this morning, I was on a call super early. Joe made breakfast. We came together and like talked about our day, and what was happening, and kind of what time are you going to be home? What's your schedule like? Things like that. So just taking that time to check in with each other, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, it's important for us to at least have one meal together every single day and just kind of check in.
As you would say, just making conversation.
That's true.
Yeah, I hear you saying that you really value the tradition of sharing a meal together and really using that as an opportunity to really talk to each other, to ask questions, to really just kind of get the pulse of where you are.
Yes.
And it's so necessary to do that, because we can go days on end without really truly communicating with our spouse. And then we just seem to be like two ships passing in the night, and we're not connecting. And that can be dangerous.
Totally.
So our third pillar is conflict resolution. And no matter the relationship, we've been married, as I said, 27, coming up on 28 years, and conflicts arise.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm curious, when there's a disagreement or something that is kind of rubbing one of you guys the wrong way, Jillian, I'm going to ask you to go first. How do you guys handle resolving conflict in your relationship?
Well, I am definitely the more feisty one. So there's a lot of things that I'm like, what are you talking about? But I mean, I think it brings it back to the humor part, because that really is, being able to like sense when the other person is on edge, when that other person might be overwhelmed or something's going on in their business, or, we have home offices that are separate, which I think is key, with doors that shut, but also they're across the hallway from each other. So we still have that communication together, but like you can hear if there's a situation going on with the other person. It's easy to like just step into their office and say, hey, can I make you a cup of coffee? Is there something, do you need to take a break? Do you want to, take the dogs outside, take a break from whatever's going on? And I think just kind of separating yourself from your desk, for lack of a better word, and being able to take that break and doing it with someone else, I think makes a huge difference, because you might be more likely to just keep plugging away, even though you probably know that you need to take a break. But just having someone there to say, hey, listen, can I get you anything? Do you need to take a break? I think is a big deal.
So being there, I hear you saying, being there in the moments and being attuned with your partner, so you're aware of when they need something and being that support system or as a backstop. How about for you, Joe? What is can you think about some conflicts that you guys have had to face and what you did to get through them?
Oh, always, for sure. We definitely have different styles of conflict resolution. And, again, it's going to be from our background, our childhood, right? How, we saw this modeled. And so I'm definitely the type of person where I will kind of get a little snappy back, but then I get quiet. And then I kind of have to have this quiet time and process it. And she's always good about bringing me back out of it. Hey, we're going to talk about this elephant in the room, or are we just going to let it sit, And then we open up this conversation, we talk about it. And I mean, so far it's been great because we have found some type of resolution. And sometimes the resolution is hey, we're just not going to see eye to eye on this. And you just have to move on and be okay with it. But we have been great so far about ending any type of conflict with some type of resolution or communication.
And quickly too. I mean, It's not something where it's days or weeks that go by where you're just letting this thing fester. It's okay, we had this discussion about something, we didn't agree. And it's maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And then we're okay, we're back on track. It's not something that we're letting it go for a long period of time, because I think that brings up other stuff the longer you let it fester. Yeah. So getting it taken care of right away just means that everybody can move on with their day.
And I think sometimes just letting things marinate for a little bit, after a while you look back on it, you're what were we even upset about in the first place, right? And then you're okay, maybe I was hungry, maybe I was tired at that time, right. Maybe I was frustrated with work, maybe it wasn't even about her, it was about something else that didn't have anything to do with her. But
well, I hear you saying that you really kind of hit it straight on, you tackle it right away, and if you need time to decompress, you acknowledge that with each other. You take that time, but you always come back to it and really try to understand each other and why you are where you are in that moment, so that you can resolve it, which I think that's what the masters do. That's what anyone that's good at resolving conflict really handles, I believe, similarly.
I think so. And you also brought up, what I heard you say is that, Joe, you like to think and marinate and kind of process, whereas Jillian is hey, what's going on? Let's address it.
I'm instant gratification.
Yeah, that's right. And that's normal. I haven't talked to, I think we've ever interviewed a couple where it's not different. One is the pursuer, Jill. Yes. Hey, I want to handle it. Let's get it done. Let's handle it. And the other one is the distancer. You know what? Give me some time. Let me think. Let me marinate. In our relationship, I'm the pursuer, and Kim says, you know what? I want to process. I just need to think and, wonder how I feel and be with myself alone. And I had to learn that. And that's a learned behavior. And the fact that you guys are only 2 years in and you figure that out is huge, because you're each allowing each other to use what they need to go forward. And it's not about conforming and about, handling it one way or the other. You also said something, Joe, which I want to circle back on, is 2/3 of all issues in a relationship are never going to be solved. You're not going to, it's not my way or her way, right? And there's just got to be understanding. So you can't solve things that are issues that are always going to come up and perpetual. It's called perpetual for a reason. And so all you can do there is find understanding. And I think you really did a great job of saying sometimes we just have to have some communication so we understand the feelings of the other person. And that's critical. The fact that you're willing to accept and say, okay, we're not going to agree, but let's just understand the viewpoint that my spouse might be having right now. When it comes to creating a kick-ass marriage, do you ever wonder what you could be doing better? Have you ever thought how helpful it would be to be a part of a like-minded community of other imperfect couples who want to level up in their number one relationship? Come visit Kickass Couples Nation, where you can talk with people just like you who are looking for ways to invest in and increase their joy, commitment, and fulfillment in their most important human relationship. You'll have access to a team of licensed marriage therapists, coaches, articles, podcasts, live webinars, and more. Just visit MatthewPHoffman.com so you can learn more about a community that's ready to help you level up. That's MatthewPHoffman.com so you can become of the growing Kickass Couples Nation right now.
And I think it's really important that you also pointed out that maybe it's because, I'm hungry. Maybe it's something that happened earlier in the day at work, or it might not have anything to do with your partner or your spouse at all. It just is something that triggered you to be feeling the way that you're feeling. And so I think it's important to be able to be aware.
Yeah, we've read a lot of books, and maybe y'all have heard of John and Julie Gottman. They're kind of the godfather and godmother of couples and relationship counseling. And he has an acronym I think he uses called HALT, HALT. If you're hungry, if you're angry, if you're lonely or tired, you got to handle those emotions or those needs first before you can be effective. Because if you're any of those things, they're going to get in the way of you having quality communication or resolution with your partner. And so it's a great reminder. And, right, maybe I'm hungry right now. Maybe I'm just angry, about something. And you got to address the issue before you can be effective with your spouse.
Exactly. Right. Well, so we have 11 other pillars. We just talked about the first 3, the 3 C's. We have 11 more pillars that we believe it takes to make a successful relationship. And I believe that you have those in front of you. I think you said you printed them out earlier. And so I'm just sort of curious. I'd love to know, Jillian, from you first, what of these other 11, which one of them resonates most with you and why?
Well, definitely number 14, which is, humor and fun. That's something that we try to do every single day. And we're kind of goofy. I think it's probably, we joke about the weirdest stuff and laugh about the weirdest stuff. But I think that's part of what really makes our relationship work, is that there's that underlying humor. Like, we can get through anything because we can laugh about it, whether it's good or bad. There's always something that we can find and ways to make whatever situation fun or, humorous.
Yeah, humor is huge in a relationship. And I think people take themselves too seriously sometimes, and they don't make time for fun and play and humor, which just makes for such a happy relationship.
Well, and our jobs are so serious too.
Yeah.
So, I feel like there's so much going on in business and what we're doing, that being able to just come home and laugh with your person is huge.
Can you share something that Joe does, Jill, that makes you laugh, that brings humor to your relationship?
Yeah. What do I do that makes you laugh?
Okay. So if there's a situation, we have the code word of like, okay, like, you're kind of grating on my last nerve. Would you like to sing the song, honey?
I always sing, "Oh, how I love Jesus."
and that's like the code of like, okay, like,
You pushed me.
you're kind of on my last nerve.
Yeah.
That's great. Do
Yeah.
you use the same one, Jill? Do you
I
use
do.
the same? Okay.
I definitely don't sing as well as he does, but sometimes you'll hear that just randomly. I'll be in a different part of the house and I can hear him singing that, and I'm like, uh-oh.
That's great. I love it.
Okay, Joe, it's your turn. Which of the other 11 pillars most resonates with you, and why?
I think trust and honesty. I know that's like the next one down from your top 3, but it really is a huge deal for me. Number one, you always start off in a relationship with trust, right? Like, so if you don't have trust, you really don't have anything to build upon. But at the same time, having that trust, I also don't take it for granted, making sure that I am delivering on my commitments. Like, if I say I'm going to be somewhere, I'm there. If I'm telling her I'm going somewhere, I'm not going somewhere else. I'm not, like, never giving her an opportunity to feel that she can never trust me or that I'm never honest with her, because I really feel that, like, once you lose that, it's really hard to get it back. So for me, that's like a really, really big thing that for me that I hold near and dear to my heart, that, like, I'm honored that she trusts me and that, like, she actually feels that I'm honest with her, because I really do work to, like, 100% no matter what I think the outcome is going to be or how she's going to react to something, to always be truthful and honest to her.
Sure. Trust and honesty are earned, and it
Yes.
happens over time. It doesn't happen immediately. When you first get to know someone, you don't know who they are. You don't
Yeah.
know if you can rely on them or trust
That is
them,
true.
right? So I
Her
think
forensic
that
background.
That's right.
She's going to
I'm
figure
always
it out no
double
matter what,
checking.
Joe.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, we have a kind of a term that Kim and I use a lot. It's called spillover thinking. And we firmly believe that our relationship, our number one relationship, which is what the two of us have together, really is the center of our success and our wellness. And that the goodness from that spills over to all other areas of our lives. So I'd love to hear from each of you and have you share, how has the goodness of your relationship spilled over into other areas of your lives?
Well, I feel like it really spills over into every area of our life, whether it's work or the charity work that we do. It's all kind of shifting over, because when you're not happy at home, or if there's a conflict in your relationship, it's really hard to not take that with you into other areas of your life. And because we handle things head on and pretty quickly, we don't have those issues that sometimes a lot of people do, because we're taking care of it right away.
Okay, great. Good.
I mean, I think for us, our spillover is we've been able to actually bless people in our lives outside of our relationship because of our strong relationship. The goal setting that we do, how we lift each other up, how we, promote each other and support each other in our endeavors. And the fact that we, at the end of the day, those individual goals spill into our singular goal with one another. It's helped us to become successful in our businesses, so that we've been able to give things to our parents that we never thought we'd be able to give, take friends on trips that we never thought we'd be able to do. So yeah, our relationship has not only been great, but we've been able to bless people outside of just us with what we have as well.
That's great.
If the two of you could go back and put your hands on your shoulders, and this will be your pre-married, before married self, if you could give yourselves one piece of advice, what would that be? And I'm going to ask Jillian for you to go first. So you're going to go back and you're going to say, Jillian, this is what I want you to know now that you're married.
Gosh, that is tough. I mean, I think that when you're online dating, which is how we met, there's a lot of people out there that you have to date before you find the right person. And so knowing that going into it, that you will find the right person, I think is huge, because there's so many people right now that are looking for love later in life, like we were. And I think it's important to know that that person is out there and you will find them, because it was really, I mean, towards the end there, I was like, I'm just going to give up. Like, I'm ready to be done. Like, this is a lot of work to online date. And so knowing that someone was out there, if I could reverse it, I think would be huge, because I had gotten to the point where it's kind of like, I don't think that person's out there for me, but turns out it was.
Sure. And that's great advice for our listeners, because I feel like a lot of people are online dating, and that's how they're meeting each other, especially with COVID and everything that, has been going on. A lot of people are trying to meet people online. And so I love hearing you say, don't give up, stay at it. That person's there.
It seems like that's I want to compliment you, because it's such a mature response or experienced response. And I think that, we've interviewed people that have been married 62 years, and we've married people that were dating. And actually, one of the couples that we interviewed just got engaged. But and I see some of the same qualities with you all. You've only been married 2 years, yet you're incredibly mature in your relationship. And I think a lot of it's because of your life maturity, the experiences you've had.
Sure.
And you've brought those things to the relationship, because number of years married does not mean quality of marriage, right? It's not a guarantee. And so it's refreshing to hear some of your responses and answers. You guys have a lot figured out, and you can see it in how you relate to each other, but also in how you think about some of these key terms in relationships that have to be there. So
Thank you.
all right, so we'll move over over to Joe now.
Oh, my turn now. Okay.
Yeah.
I would say if I had to go back and say anything, it would be communicate early. Your wants, needs, also like what you're willing to put up with and what you're not willing to put up with, right? I mean, you're never going to figure everything out from the beginning, but there are some things where like people tend to stay silent in that honeymoon phase and not voice their opinion about what they may or may not like, where, you know, that's going to be someone else's character. They're good. That problem is going to arise again later in the relationship. So you better just voice the opinion right now. Doesn't need to be an argument. Just mention it. And just before you get to that point of commitment, you figure out, are we going to be compatible or not? And just don't be afraid to communicate.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, you know, be willing to have those hard conversations or those maybe uncomfortable conversations early on. That's awesome advice because I feel like enough people, they don't do that.
Yeah, I agree. It's people usually get separated for the conversations they never had.
Yes.
Not the conversations they did have, because if you're not afraid to lovingly address those things, then they can, as you said, be resolved or at least understood so you can go forward.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, we have really enjoyed our time with you guys today. If people want to learn more about you or about what you do or where to find you, Jill, where should people go to learn more about Jillian and or Joe?
So you can find me, Jillian Flodstrom, all over the internet, social media, website, everything. That's the easiest place to find me.
Okay. And how about for you, Joe?
I'm pretty all over the socials too. So Facebook, you know, Instagram, even TikTok, which is my new favorite thing. Like I barely go on any of the other ones, but under Joe Vego and Joe Vego Real Estate.
Oh, great. Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for speaking with us today, for allowing us to interview you and have some vulnerable conversations. We appreciate everything that you shared with us today.
Loved our time
Very well.
together, guys, and look forward to connecting again with you soon. Thank you.
That's all we've got for this episode of the Kickass Couples Podcast. If you like the content of this show, you'll love Matthew's newly released book, Kickass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. To receive a digital mini book of quotes and images from the book, all you have to do is rate this show and leave a review in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen. Then email us a screenshot of your review at podcast@kickasscouplespodcast.com and we'll get it over to you right away. Until next time, remember, happily ever after doesn't just happen, it's on purpose.